They say a man who kills animals for fun is the worst kind of predator, and this man proves it.
Somebody that has enough evil inside to harm an animal has that same level of evil to harm a human.
Domenico Claude Gigante was no stranger to violence. With a long history of cruelty, including once slamming a dog's head on a table, he was already a walking red flag. But on the night of March 1st, 2023, his darkness reached a level so horrifying that even seasoned investigators were left shaken.
New details tonight on what investigators say led up to a man shooting and killing 4 people under one roof, including his daughter.
It all started when a 43-year-old Florida man received a video call from his girlfriend's young children at exactly 1:55 in the morning. At first, he was confused. Why would they be awake so late on a school night? Still groggy, he answered the call, only to be met with terrified voices and a chilling claim. All their family members were dead. Without hesitation, he rushed to his girlfriend's home, praying it was some horrible misunderstanding. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to find.
My girlfriend's son just called me and said his parents were dead. I just got over to the house because I didn't know what was going on. The grandma, the mom, the dad, and the sister are all dead, and the boys are the only ones alive. There's blood all over the place.
To truly grasp the horror of what unfolded, we need to go back to where it all began. Cocoa, a small, quiet city in Brevard County, Florida. With a population of just over 19,000, Cocoa is the kind of place where people greet their neighbors by name, and life moves at a slower, more peaceful pace. Situated along Florida's famed Space Coast, it's best known for its proximity to the Kennedy Space Center, where rocket launches paint the sky with streaks of light. The city carries a kind of sleepy charm, where families grow old in the same homes they were raised in, and the streets are lined with stories passed down through generations. One such story is a local legend that Cocoa earned its name from an elderly African-American woman who lived near the Indian River. She would offer hot cocoa to passing sailors, and they, in turn, would call out, "Cocoa! Cocoa!" to signal they had arrived and were ready for her warmth. Whether myth or truth, the tale captures the town's long-standing image, one of welcome, safety, and community. Crime here? Statistically below average. For decades, Cocoa was more associated with rockets and retirees than anything remotely sinister. But all that changed in the early hours of March 1st, 2023. At exactly 1:55 in the morning, the tranquility of that sleepy city was shattered. Kevin D., a 43-year-old man, was asleep in his Rockledge home when he was jolted awake by the familiar chime of his cell phone. It was a FaceTime call, odd for that hour, and even more unusual when he saw the caller ID. The screen read, Kiara Terwilliger, the 15-year-old daughter of his girlfriend, Constance Terwilliger. Confused and slightly alarmed, Kevin answered. But it wasn't Kiara on the screen. Instead, he was met by the frightened, tear-streaked faces of 2 young boys, aged 6 and 9, Kiara's younger brothers. Their voices trembled. Through choppy words and panicked breaths, they told Kevin they had woken to the sound of screaming, of loud bangs, of crackling noises that didn't make sense. And then they said the words no one should ever have to hear. Everyone is dead. Kevin's heart stopped. Shaking, still in disbelief, he threw on clothes and raced out the door. He kept the boys on the line the entire drive as he rushed toward Constance's house in Cocoa, praying it was a mistake, a terrible misunderstanding. But deep down, something told him this was real. When he arrived, he pushed open the front door and stepped straight into a nightmare. There, just inside the living room, lay the lifeless bodies of two adults, side by side. Blood pooled around them. Kevin's instincts kicked in. He scooped the boys up, took them outside, and put them safely in his car. That's when he dialed 911. And as you could hear from Kevin's call earlier, the panic in his voice was undeniable, raw, frantic, and full of fear. Within minutes of that call, deputies from the Brevard County Sheriff's Office arrived on scene. Guns drawn, they entered the home and began clearing it room by room, each step leading them deeper into a nightmare. But the worst was yet to come. In the south bedroom, deputies discovered the most heartbreaking scene of all. 15-year-old Kiara Terwilliger, Constance's only daughter, was found lying in bed. She too had been shot in the head. A pool of blood spread beneath her, staining the mattress where she had likely been sleeping just moments before her life was stolen. Kiara was more than just a victim. She was a bright, vibrant teenager full of curiosity and promise. She loved art. She dreamed big. Her death was not just tragic. It was cruel, senseless, and unforgivable. By the time officers had finished clearing the home, the reality had set in. 4 lives had been taken, across 3 generations, and only 2 small boys, just 6 and 9 years old, had survived. The horror of what they had seen would never leave them.
I feel for the kids that were in the home and had to witness this. I'm sure it's going to affect them for a really long time. That's what's sad.
As the forensics team continued their work, investigators turned to Kevin for answers. Who would do something like this? Who could be capable of such unimaginable violence? And Kevin, still shaken, gave them the name that would change the direction of the case completely. Domenico Claude Gigante.
.24 grit. Still got to do the handle part, but well, it's finished. Use the Osflow to finish up the last of the rust spots to pull the oxide out.
Kevin explained that Domenico was the biological father of 15-year-old Kiara. The two had never been close. In fact, Kiara was born from a brief 2-month relationship between Domenico and Constance Terwilliger, a relationship Kevin described as toxic and short-lived. According to Kevin, Kiara harbored deep resentment toward her father. He had been absent for most of her life and only recently made an unexpected attempt to reconnect. But Kiara didn't want anything to do with him. Kevin recalled a conversation he had with Constance the night before the murders, around 8:30 in the evening. During their talk, Constance mentioned that Domenico had texted Kiara earlier that day with a disturbing and aggressive message. F you. Kevin admitted he wasn't fully aware of the back and forth between Kiara and her estranged father, but it was clear that tensions had been building. Constance, trying to protect her daughter, had insisted that any contact with Domenico remain strictly over the phone, never in person. But what Kevin didn't know at the time, and what investigators would soon uncover, was far more disturbing. The situation took an even darker turn when someone close to Kiara came forward with a chilling allegation. According to this individual, Domenico had recently reached out to Kiara with an inappropriate request. He allegedly asked her to send photos of herself in a bathing suit. For detectives, this was more than just disturbing. It suggested predatory behavior, manipulation, and perhaps an obsessive need to control the daughter he had never truly known. With this new information, homicide investigators officially declared Domenico a person of interest. The case had already stunned the quiet town of Cocoa, but now it was rapidly turning into something far more sinister. Detectives were no longer asking what happened. They were racing to understand why and who exactly Domenico Claude Gigante really was. By 3:48 in the morning, homicide detectives arrived. They quickly secured a search warrant and began combing through the house for clues. One of the first things they noticed was the front door. It had been kicked in with force. A boot print near the handle and damage to the frame confirmed what they already suspected. The killer had not been let in. He had broken in, determined and uninvited. Inside, detectives collected a storm of evidence, spent shell casings, blood samples for DNA testing, and dozens of photographs capturing the carnage. Each room told a part of the story, each body a life stolen in an instant. But as the forensics team worked, another part of the investigation began, building a profile of the man they believed was responsible. Domenico Claude Gigante was born in July of 1986. He had lived in both New Jersey and Florida, but it was in Florida where his rap sheet truly began to grow. Detectives uncovered a disturbing pattern: aggravated assault, aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, domestic violence, drug possession, and even animal cruelty. In one particularly horrifying incident from 2008, he was accused of snapping a dog's neck, slamming its body into a table, and stabbing another dog to death. These weren't the outbursts of a troubled man. They were the violent acts of someone capable of unimaginable cruelty. There was also the 2012 road rage incident in New Jersey, where Domenico reportedly brake-checked and rammed two motorcyclists, then threatened them with a machete. Again and again, his name surfaced in police records tied to violent outbursts, weapons, and intimidation. It was a portrait of escalation. Violence against animals, then strangers, and now, his own family. And yet, despite this terrifying history, Domenico remained a free man. Most of his sentences resulted in probation or short stints behind bars. He had somehow slipped through the cracks, even as his behavior grew darker and more erratic. Detectives didn't stop there. They canvassed the neighborhood around the Terwilliger home, and one investigator noticed a security camera mounted to a neighbor's house. The footage would prove to be one of the biggest breakthroughs in the case. The video captured a silver Dodge pickup truck pulling into the Terwilliger driveway at exactly 1:19 in the morning. The truck's headlights were switched off as it slowly crept forward. 2 minutes later, a loud noise, believed to be the door being kicked in, was captured on audio. Over the next 71 seconds, 9 gunshots were recorded. Then silence. The same truck was later seen backing out and disappearing into the night. That truck was registered to Domenico. With mounting evidence, 2 homicide detectives made their way to Domenico's residence on Matador Drive in Rockledge. It was 11:22 in the morning. Their official purpose was to deliver a death notification, to inform him that his daughter, Chiara, had been found murdered. But their real intent was more strategic: to observe him, to gauge his emotional reaction. Would he be devastated, angry, or eerily calm?
Chiara? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we found her deceased today.
What? Is this a joke?
It's not a joke.
No, sir. What? Huh?
It's not a joke.
Oh, what happened?
We're still actively trying to figure that out. At this point.
Was she at school or what happened?
like I said, sir, unfortunately, we're still trying to figure it out.
Okay.
We wanted to notify
No,
the father.
I have the same questions you guys. Was she home? Was she at school? Did this happen at a bus stop? Is it because of her boyfriend?
Well, we'd be hoping that you would be able to help us out with that as well. Would you mind coming down to the precinct and talking with us?
Not at this time. I need to process this. This is
Dominic, they need to talk to you. You need to go to... He has Asperger's. He has Asperger's, so he has a little bit of difficulty processing.
That's understandable. We're trying to figure out what happened to your daughter, sir. And if you come down and talk to us, that will give us a little bit more insight.
Yeah, we're trying to piece together a lot of information.
You know, I got a table, the dogs are up, I could have a cigarette. I mean, like you said, I don't even know where to start with this. This doesn't even seem real. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
It doesn't seem real.
You gotta go talk to them.
On behalf of the sheriff's office,
Jesus.
full condolences.
Are you gonna go with me?
She should be at school.
Yeah, she's supposed to be at school right now. I know she had the strep throat,
Bruce,
but I mean...
you could come as well. It would be helpful if you could as well.
I really do need someone to come with me. I'm sorry, I have Asperger's. I'm autistic, and fuck.
Would you be willing to come? Of course. As much information as we can get, it would be helpful.
Our office isn't very far from here. It's right down here on Gusset.
Okay. Well, let me,
We gotta put the dogs.
I gotta get some clothes on and, what do you want? Do you want us to come to
Are we still fucking awake?
To the,
I mean...
Well,
to the Rockledge office or
you
what?
guys are upset. We don't want you driving, so you could each ride with one of us. You just got one of some of the worst news you could ever get, and we don't want to get into that.
I don't even know where to start. I don't even know how to process this.
All right, well, let me get some clothes on. What the fuck?
As you can see, detectives were immediately skeptical of Domenico's reaction. His face held a blankness that didn't match the gravity of the news. While he acted somewhat confused, he showed no real emotion, no tears, no collapse under the weight of hearing that his own daughter had been murdered in cold blood. The officers observed a man who appeared to be in disbelief, but not in mourning. Shortly after receiving the news, Domenico and his roommate briefly returned to their house to grab some belongings. What happened inside would shake the investigation wide open. According to the roommate, once the two of them were alone, he turned to Domenico and asked a question that had been hanging heavy in the air. "Did you do this?" Domenico didn't hesitate. He looked at his roommate and calmly responded, "Yes. I shot her 3 times. It's just you and me now. We have to stick together. We'll get through this." It wasn't a confession made in fear or remorse. It was cold, calculated, and disturbingly matter-of-fact. After they left the house, detectives transported Domenico and the roommate to the station, but in separate vehicles. The difference between the two men was stark. In one car sat Domenico, showing no visible distress, no sadness. Instead of asking about his daughter or the investigation, he chose to speak about global warming and the environment, a detached stream of thoughts that made the hair on the back of the officer's neck stand up. In the second car, the roommate was emotional. He couldn't hold back his frustration and grief, and as he sat beside the detective, he began to open up. He shared something deeply disturbing, something he had heard the night before the murders. Around 11:30 in the evening, Domenico had been in a rage over Chiara not answering his messages or telling him about her doctor's appointment. In that moment of fury, Domenico reportedly said, "I guess I'm just going to have to go over there and kill them all." At the time, the roommate thought it was just another one of Domenico's outbursts. He had a history of violent tantrums. But now, looking back, the roommate whispered, "God help me. Maybe I should have known." He also revealed that Domenico was very familiar with firearms and likely used his roommate's own gun in the murders. To support this, he provided detectives with doorbell footage from their home. The video showed Domenico entering his silver Dodge pickup truck, holding a handgun, just 23 minutes before the first shots were fired at the Terwilliger residence. The same camera later captured Domenico returning home just 19 minutes after the last gunshot. With mounting evidence, a silent confession, and eyewitness statements, detectives were ready to confront Domenico directly. Inside the interview room, 2 homicide detectives from the Brevard County Sheriff's Office read Domenico his Miranda rights. He waived them without hesitation and agreed to speak. When asked when he last saw Chiara in person, Domenico claimed it was Monday afternoon around 2 o'clock, roughly 35 hours before the shooting. He said Chiara had a doctor's appointment for strep throat, which is why she stayed home from school. He added that their last verbal interaction had been the following day, Tuesday, around 3 o'clock, when he called to check on her condition. "That's the only thing that really bothers me," he muttered, referring to the tone of their final conversation. He said he had tried to ask about her symptoms, but Chiara hadn't responded the way he wanted. Then came the most bizarre detail yet. Domenico claimed that around 1:30 in the morning, Chiara had called him while he was sitting on the toilet. He described the moment as odd because Chiara never called him at that hour, and he thought maybe she was finally opening up or trying to reconnect. Maybe she was trying something new, he said. When asked if he responded to the call, Domenico said he didn't answer right away, but texted her back afterward. He allegedly wrote, "Hey, sorry I missed your call. Was on the toilet. You're right. It's just a doctor appointment. I'm sorry. See you for sushi later." On top of everything, he described himself as a recluse, saying, "I'm a hermit crab," with a light chuckle that seemed wildly out of place. He claimed to have no friends, no social life, and no interest in anything beyond his work delivering newspapers. According to him, his nights were predictable. He went to bed at 6 o'clock in the evening, woke up around 1 in the morning, exercised, and then prepared for his paper route. He denied owning any firearms. He insisted that he never left the house unless it was for work, and made it clear that no one else had used his silver Dodge pickup truck on the night of the murders. But the detectives listening to him had already begun connecting the dots, and the evidence told a different story. They looked Domenico straight in the eyes and questioned him about inconsistencies. He had claimed not to have gone anywhere that night, yet surveillance footage from his own doorbell camera showed otherwise. His truck had clearly been captured on video, pulling out of the driveway. When confronted with that footage, Domenico appeared momentarily startled, but quickly brushed it off, saying he must have forgotten. He then offered a vague excuse, claiming he had gone to a man named Jim Harper's house to smoke marijuana and sit by a fire. The detectives asked for Harper's contact information so they could verify the story. Domenico hesitated before saying he didn't have it. That hesitation, that pause, was the first crack in his carefully rehearsed facade. The detectives pressed further. The footage didn't just show his truck leaving, it showed him carrying a handgun as he got in. When asked to explain this, Domenico fell silent. His shoulders stiffened, his gaze dropped, and the atmosphere in the room grew heavier by the second. There was no more stalling, no more deflection. Finally, after a long pause, Domenico leaned back and said the words investigators had been expecting. He was done talking and didn't want to continue the interview. It wasn't a confession, but in the minds of the detectives, it was as good as one. It was the kind of silence that speaks louder than words. Shortly afterward, Brevard County Sheriff Wayne Ivey stood before a row of flashing cameras and microphones to address the public. His voice was firm, his expression unwavering, as he confirmed what many had feared. Approximately 1 hour prior, deputies had arrested Domenico Claude Gigante, 36 years old, from Rockledge, Florida. He was charged with 4 counts of premeditated first-degree murder, with no bond set, as ordered by Judge David Koenig. Sheriff Ivey didn't hold back. He laid out Domenico's violent history, detailing a long string of arrests that painted the picture of a man who had been dangerous for years. As early as 2005, Domenico had been arrested for domestic battery. In 2008, he was charged with multiple counts of animal cruelty. By 2012, he faced charges of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon and aggravated assault. Sheriff Ivey then issued a statement that would resonate far beyond the press conference, that anyone capable of harming animals is more than capable of harming human beings.
Folks, I'm going to tell you that this is an extremely violent individual with an extremely violent past dating back as far as 2005, who should have never been on our streets where he could take the lives of this entire family. In 2005, he was arrested for domestic violence and battery. In 2008, he was arrested for multiple counts of cruelty to animals. In 2012, aggravated battery with a deadly weapon and aggravated assault. And I have said this before, that if you are the capacity of a person that you can harm an animal, you will hurt a human being. And this individual is living proof of that statement.
As Domenico Claude Gigante sat in custody, waiting to be transported to jail, his mind wasn't on the victims. It wasn't on his daughter or the blood-soaked house he had left behind. Instead, he repeatedly asked officers if he could speak with his roommate, just one last time. Eventually, the roommate, who happened to be at the station for questioning, agreed to a monitored conversation. What unfolded on that recorded video would only further cement the chilling nature of Domenico's mindset. The first words out of Domenico's mouth weren't about remorse or grief. They were a question rooted in paranoia and self-preservation. "Did you tell the police anything?" The roommate, calm and honest, answered, "I told the truth." Domenico's voice tightened. "Why?" he demanded. The roommate's response was blunt but powerful. "Because you did something horrible." But that exchange wasn't the end of it. Just 5 days later, from inside the jail, Domenico made a call to the same roommate. This time his tone was calculated, manipulative. He asked the unthinkable, that his roommate take the blame for the murders. Domenico urged him to lie and say he had committed the killings out of love for him, a twisted plea from a man grasping for any possible way to escape the consequences of his actions. He also mentioned plans to pursue an insanity defense, hoping to convince the court that his mind was broken, that he didn't know what he was doing. But the justice system was already moving forward, and fast. Weeks later, a grand jury indicted Domenico on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of armed burglary. The case was officially handed over to State Attorney Phil Archer's office, and the prosecution wasted no time. They announced they would be seeking the maximum punishment under Florida law, the death penalty. Prosecutors believed the evidence was overwhelming. 4 lives were taken in a methodical, premeditated act of violence. Shell casings, surveillance footage, confessions, witnesses, digital footprints. And worst of all, the victims were family. One of them a 15-year-old girl who had once trusted him, even if from a distance. According to Florida law, first-degree murder is a capital felony, and the penalties are clear. Life in prison without the possibility of parole, or death by lethal injection. As of the making of this video, Domenico Claude Gigante remains behind bars at the Brevard County Jail, facing 4 counts of first-degree premeditated murder and 1 count of armed burglary. Prosecutors are pushing for the death penalty, and the case is still moving through Florida's legal system with no confirmed trial date just yet. A docket-sounding hearing held on March 6, 2025 confirmed ongoing legal motions, but the road to justice remains long and complex. Domenico's legal team continues to examine evidence and is expected to challenge aspects of the case, possibly through mental health claims. But the evidence, from surveillance footage to damning witness testimony, continues to paint a devastating picture of premeditated violence. And while the legal gears turn, the heartbreaking reality remains. 15-year-old Kiara will never grow up, never graduate high school, never chase her dreams or discover the woman she could have become. Her life, like the lives of her mother, grandmother, and her mother's partner, was stolen in the most brutal way imaginable by someone who should have protected her. Whether the ultimate sentence will be life in prison or death by lethal injection, one thing is certain: the community and the world will be watching closely. For now, we wait. For justice, for answers, for the voices of the victims to finally be heard in a courtroom. If you've been following this case, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think the death penalty is justified here? Should the roommate have spoken up sooner? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you've made it this far, be sure to check out this next video. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you once again for watching.